Okay, I think we are ready to begin. Welcome again. My name is Laura, and I will be your facilitator for tonight's meeting. I'm going to review a few logistics, and then we will hear from the project team before ending with some time for questions and answers. There are a few things to keep in mind that will make your experience easier using this Zoom webinar platform. Participants are automatically muted. We have a poll question at the end of our presentation, and we will reserve time at the end for questions. Throughout this event, if you have questions for the project team, please type them into the Q&A box. Let's try this out. What is your favorite place to go in Bothell? This can be a park, business, library, anything you like. Please type your answer in the Q&A. We have some sushi, a sushi lover, the library, McMinimans, the senior center. If you would like to see English captions, you can click on the CC button. There is live Spanish and Mandarin interpretation available during this meeting. This means we will be presenting slowly to leave time for interpretation. If you wish to participate in Spanish or Mandarin, you can click on the interpretation button on your control panel and select Spanish or Mandarin as the language you want to hear. We are recording this webinar to add to our project website so that those who are not able to join us this evening can view the presentation later. And with that, I would like to introduce our project team. We are joined today by Jack Bartman, the City Project Manager, Ross French, the Project Manager with WSP, the consulting team, and with our team, Daniel Ruiz, our Spanish interpreter, Iran Huang, our Mandarin interpreter, and Nelson Chen will be taking notes. Let's start with you, Jack.
Good evening. Hi, and welcome to our second workshop on the Bothell Way Improvements projects. Thanks for joining us. We are still somewhat early in the design process, but we do have some updates that we'd like to share with you. We'll report back on some of the questions that we heard in the first workshop and share some of the reasons for the project, some sample roadway designs, a timeline for planning, and eventually construction. This is our second workshop. There were some great questions in our first workshop in February. Today, we'd like to share some more answers to those questions that were asked. If we don't answer all your questions, don't worry. There are still more opportunities to ask us about the project at the end of today's presentation and in a few months in our online open house. As you know, Bothell is an important north-south connection between Snohomish and King counties. It links commercial and residential districts throughout our region, including Canyon Park and downtown Bothell, and then on to Northgate, Kirkland, UW-Bothell, and many other communities. These are the regional centers for employment and housing, and they're growing. This map shows you downtown Bothell and Canyon Park and how this project will improve the connection between them. The project will improve Bothell Way between Reeder Way, which is just north of downtown Bothell to the south, and 240th Street Southeast to the north. You've probably seen the improvements that the City of Bothell has made to provide safer downtown for shoppers and residents, adding sidewalks, signage, and bike lanes. We hope to do the same for the residents and businesses in this section of Bothell Way too. With that, I'd like to hand it off to our project manager, Ross French, to update you on the current planning process.
Thanks, Jack. Since the last workshop, we've been looking more closely at the current traffic counts, the road capacity, and area growth. Forecasts predict that car traffic volumes will double along this section of Bothell Way by 2040. Housing growth continues throughout the region as well, and that includes this section of Bothell Way. But unlike some other Bothell neighborhoods, families in these neighborhoods don't have a safe way to get downtown from Canyon Park without using their cars. We've heard from parents whose kids would love to pedal over to visit friends in a different neighborhood, but there is not currently a safe way to do that. This project will provide safe access for them and everyone else who travels this road. The Bothell Way Improvements Project will also help businesses, making it easier for customers to safely access buildings and parking, regardless of their mode of transportation. The next slide, please. The current road design blocks fish. We're currently in discussions with the Tulalip and Muckleshoot tribes and the Department of Fish and Wildlife to ensure the new road design permits fish to swim through the creek. We plan to improve wetlands next to Bothell Way as well. Fish passageways will be designed so that small animals can also pass under the road. This project will improve the bus system for the region by adding bus rapid transit, or BRT, along the corridor. BRT is a bus system that acts somewhat like a train. It comes more frequently and reliably than conventional buses and allows riders to enter anywhere along the bus. BRT is a very efficient way of moving a lot of people along a major transit route. Community Transit's Swift Green Line BRT runs from Seaway Transit Center to Canyon Park Park and Ride. It runs every 10 minutes on weekdays and every 15 minutes on weekends, connecting Everett, Milk Creek, and Bothell. As part of this project, we plan to extend the Swift line to downtown Bothell, upgrade signals and lane markings to help buses move through traffic, and make commutes better for all users. Through these early conversations, we've heard some terrific questions from the public and wanted to address some of them here. You asked about the curves in this section of Bothell Way, when construction will take place, about lighting and landscaping, and what other amenities you can expect. Let's tackle those now. Don't forget to use the Q&A box to post your questions. You can do this at any time. Before we answer the question of whether we'll straighten the curves, let's take a moment to look at why there are curves in the road. Check out this topographical map of the area. You can see that the road passes through a creek valley. See those pointy ridges the road currently avoids? That's what dictates the curves. Cutting through them would be expensive and difficult. We're also planning to not move the road much so that we stay clear of the wetlands to the west side of Bothell Way. Here you can see our construction phases. We need to build this project in phases as funding becomes available. Some wondered why we're working on the north and south ends first. And they're where more people live and work and where more traffic problems occur. These sections also connect to existing improvements, making them more usable sooner. So our construction timeline is phase 1 and 2, currently scheduled to begin construction in November or December 2025, ending in fall of 2027. And phase 3, or the middle section, will begin construction in November or December of 2027, ending in fall of 2029. At our last workshop, you also asked about lighting and landscaping improvements. We're still early in our design, but here's some examples of what lighting and landscaping could look like. They'll fit in with the existing street lighting and landscaping already in Bothell. These street lights are energy efficient, durable, and effective at keeping roadways well lit. The landscaping won't look exactly like this, but this photo gives you an idea. Now on to the improvements we're making to the road itself. Here's a sample cross-section showing what the new roadway could look like. You can see the center turn lane in the center of the road. That helps drivers to move out of the way of car traffic when making a left turn. We also plan to add bike lanes, sidewalks, and landscaping. Let's get into some details. As I mentioned, the project will add a center turn lane along much of the route. This will provide a way for cars to access businesses and neighborhoods without slowing the car traffic behind them, improving traffic flow, especially at the southern end of the valley, where it often backs up. The center turn lane will also help reduce the number of crashes. As you saw in the sample roadway cross-section, this project will add protected bike lanes to Bothell Way. I'd like to take a moment to talk a bit about what protected bike lanes do and why they're important. Protected bike lanes are simply bike lanes that are separated via barriers, landscaping, or both from other users of the road. They make the road safer for everyone, not just for cyclists, but also for people walking and driving. They help remind people to drive slower and make it easier for drivers to predict the actions of cyclists. Protected bike lanes and sidewalks bring customers to businesses and make the community a more attractive investment for businesses that are considering expanding or moving. Safe transportation options provide economic opportunity for people who can't or don't drive cars. They help folks to get not only to shopping and other businesses, but they help people get to jobs. Within the first year of adding protected bike lanes, many cities saw average 75% increase in the number of bikes. This makes sense considering 71% of Americans reported they would like to ride bikes more often, but are concerned about their safety. Bike lanes on this stretch will connect cyclists to the many wonderful nearby regional trails. This will bring cyclists from the Burt Gilman and Sammamish River trails into town and businesses. Next, I'd like to share a couple of design options for these bike lanes. They won't look exactly like this, of course. In this drawing, you can see that bicyclists and pedestrians are at the same level, separated by a planted strip. The pros of this option are greater ability to provide landscaping and a larger separation from vehicular traffic. The cons of this are the possible conflict between bicyclists and pedestrians, especially at intersections. In this design, the cyclists are at road level, though still separated from traffic by a buffer, either planted or otherwise. The pros is that there will be less conflict with pedestrians, but the cons are that there's less flexibility for landscape, less connectivity to nearby homes and businesses for the bicyclists, and greater challenges for pedestrians to connect to buses. In addition, it would be a challenge to provide adequate drainage through those areas where the bicyclists are. Here's a cross-section of the configurations. You can see that there's more landscaping when bike lanes are at sidewalk level. What do you think? Leave your comments in the Q&A box. We'll respond to any questions at the end of the meeting. Here's the intersection of 191st and Bothell Way as it looks today. It's a dangerous intersection. There are frequent rear-end incidents with cars heading south. Redesigning this intersection will help safety, not only for cars, but also for people walking and biking. Widening the road here will provide traffic flow through this intersection. More cars will be able to pass through per green light. As part of our pedestrian safety improvements, we're looking at adding additional crosswalks away from the intersections. This is a map of some of the locations we're looking at. After our research is complete, these locations may change. We're widening the street, and you can see that we've included a pedestrian refuge. That island in yellow you see there in the crosswalks. These islands will help provide a safe place for people on foot to take a break while crossing. Wanted to provide an update on how the team is advancing the design. Here's some of the things we're doing now. We're out in the field surveying to identify where the road and properties are and where improvements might go, determining the edges of wetlands and other features. We're designing road improvements like bike lanes and locations for bus stops, and having conversations with the Tulalip and Muckleshoot tribes about preserving and improving fish habitat and passage. We're working with community transit on bringing bus rapid transit and identifying the location of bus stops and amenities. We're working with the North Shore School District to help ensure school buses can safely deliver students. We're doing this research now so that we can plan the safest, most efficient roadway that works for the people that use it, whether they are in a car, on foot, using a wheelchair, or riding a bike. I know you're probably interested in the timeline and when you'll see the improvements we've been discussing. As I mentioned, we're early in the project. We're looking at the environment and geography of the area, along with traffic data and forecasts of how much this road will get used for coming decades. We're having conversations with you and other members of the community, along with neighbors and businesses. We're using the information we're collecting to come up with preliminary designs. Design is when we figure out where the roadway goes. Right-of-way is when we identify and secure what land we need to build these improvements. We will begin notifying property owners and tenants well in advance of any decision to purchase land for this project. We'll use the feedback we hear tonight and over the next few months to refine these concepts. We'll share the final concepts with you in an online open house, likely this summer. From there, we'll work to secure the land and permits we need to build the project. We expect to begin construction in late 2025. Laura?
Thanks, Ross. So, at this point, it is time for a poll question. Once safety improvements are complete, how will you use Bothell Way? You can click all that apply. Okay, you can see the results here. We have people using all modes, especially biking and driving. Now back to Ross. Before, I guess it's actually my slide. So before we jump into Q&A, we're going to have a quick pause so our interpreters can translate any in-language questions. As a reminder, you are welcome to type a question into the Q&A box at any time. It looks like we have a comment here from Sarah about bike lanes at street level seeming best for safety of pedestrians, especially if they're separated from cars. Thank you, Sarah. We have another question here from Jason about right-of-way acquisition and whether or not that will take place for all phases at the same time, or will phase 3 acquisitions occur after phase 1 and 2 acquisitions? Jack, would you like to address that one?
Sure. We do plan on doing the phase 1 and phase 2 acquisitions first, and then doing the phase 3 acquisitions after that. A lot of this is dependent on when we get various grant fundings, and that's going to be controlling the schedule somewhat. In fact, we're applying for grants right now to purchase the phase 3 right away. We already have funding for phase 1 and phase 2 right away.
Thank you, Jack. Another question from Tom about the connection between the tribes we mentioned and Horse Creek and if they are impacted.
Well, the tribes have a I'm not exactly sure what the word I'm trying to look for, but the tribes have control over habitat, fish habitat, and things like that. So the tribes they need to approve what we do for fish habitat along with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So that's why we are in discussion with them and their goals are mainly to improve habitat, and we are working with them to do that. And we're going to be doing that mostly by, right now, Horse Creek has got 3 culverts underneath the road that actually block fish passage, and we're going to be updating those.
Thank you, Jack. And as a follow-up to that question, Tom is also asking if the tribes are local to this area. I believe they are. If you'd like to elaborate there, Jack.
Well, they're not immediately local to this area, but they are responsible for the waters within this area. So, yes.
Thank you. Another question from Sue about noise barriers for those who currently live on the roadway or next to the roadway.
Short answer is no. These types of they wouldn't be particularly effective. So much of the noise is just coming from generally around the city from all directions. And so you would actually find that a significant amount of noise is not coming from Bothell Highway or Bothell Way itself. But no, we're not. We are going to be doing a noise study We are going to be evaluating the effect of the changes on noise in this road, but I expect that we're not going to have significant changes because of this project.
Thank you, Jack. Just allow a few more minutes. Feel free to add in your questions or comments. So another question here from Andrew. To reduce the impact on wetlands and Horse Creek, it would be best to have bike lanes and walking traffic only on one side of the road, like the Burt Gilman. And with the possibility of crosswalks, could this eliminate the need for bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides?
Russ, do you want to take a shot at that one? No, he's laughing at me.
Laughing with you, Jack. I think the answer to that question is that is a possibility. We're looking at that as an option. In fact, we discussed it at a meeting today. Our design team did. There's a lot of factors guiding our design, and that sentiment about less impact because you have everything on one side is certainly something that we've discussed. So it's a possibility. I'll just say that.
One thing that would happen though is if we put, right now, we're looking at basically, or one of the ideas that we're leaning towards is putting one-way bike lanes on each side of the road. If we combine them, we'd have to double the width of the bike lane. So
right.
We actually wouldn't be saving that much space.
Yeah, it would be the width of maybe a landscape strip plus a little bit, maybe. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then some interest in transit time and what this project will do to travel times on the bus. Specifically, how long would it take for a rush hour bus ride from downtown to Canyon Park?
I haven't actually figured out the time, but I can tell you that we expect the median traffic speed to increase from somewhere around 17 miles an hour to around 25 miles an hour. And the buses are going to be, somewhat in traffic as they move along the corridor. But with the additional number of lanes, we expect that efficiency to be greatly improved.
Thank you, Jack. Great questions this evening. We'll hang out a little longer to see if you have any additional questions or comments before we talk about next steps. So a question from Sue about if the speed limit will increase.
No. No, we expect the efficiency of the road to increase, but the actual speed limit itself will not change.
So we have another question here from Andrew about which of the designs for the bike lane would cause the least amount of disruption and be the narrowest on the overall footprint.
They would actually be pretty close to the same width, whether the bike lane is up by the sidewalk or down on the road. What would change is the width of the landscaping strips. Because if the bike lane was down by the road, we'd have to have something in between the bike lane and the cars. And then we'd also wind up having something in between the bike lane and the sidewalk. But if we move the sidewalk up next to the bike, or if we move the bike lane up next to the sidewalk, then we could have a wider planting strip.
Thank you, Jack. We also have a question here about utility relocation, specifically sewer and water connections in the middle of the road. And would the city be moving those connections to a new possible location? And who would be paying for that type of change?
We are planning on updating the sewer and the water pipes that go down the road. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by your connection is in the middle of the road. Your connection starts at your property line. Between the pipe in the middle of the road and your property line, that's all city-owned facilities, and the city will be paying to make any changes to those facilities that are needed for this project.
So just a clarifying comment that with the road widening, the connection at the property line will be in the middle of the road.
If we
Does that
need to
sound-
move your water meter or move your other service connections so that they're not in the middle of the road and that they're on your property, that will occur as part of the project, as a cost to the project.
Thanks, Jack. And another question about water connections, if the city will stub out water and sewer to properties that do not currently have stub outs.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I would have to review that with our developer section. Typically, no, but I know that when we rebuild this road, we're not anxious to have the road cut into again for more utilities. So I don't have a good answer for you. If you'd like to get a better answer, if you pop me an email, and I will talk to our developer group and get that question answered for you.
I'm just going to put the next step slide on, not to move us along from Q&A, but just so you all can see Jack and Ross's email there on the screen so that you have that available. Any final lingering questions or comments? So another question here, if we could share or have any idea on the overall width or footprint of the road.
I am not comfortable. We've got an idea, but we're still massaging it, and I am not comfortable saying a width right now that will be quoted. So we will be able to answer that question in another couple months.
So that's something that will be considered during design, and we're taking down questions and comments we received today so that we can report back when we have our next meeting. An online open house. Thank you, Donna, for your support for bike and pedestrian centric planning and for this project. We appreciate that. Thank you everyone for some great questions and answers. If you've registered for this webinar, you'll automatically receive project alerts. This means we'll notify you about our online open house this summer, where we will present the final design concepts. To learn more about the project, make sure to visit the project website. And if later today or this week you have a comment or you would like to share with the team, please make sure to email Jack or Ross. Thank you again for joining us.